Jim Arwood, Luther Kruger.
Luther, very
you
good to meet you.
in person. Found out about your video work and said I got to get a hold of this guy. We're passing through Arizona, and thanks for answering the call.
Yeah.
So just a quick summary. First off, you told me such a fascinating story about how you got into solar energy to begin with. If you could tell that
Well,
again.
and I was a teenager, so this would have been in the 1960s. And the Atomic Energy Commission selected our town for the nuclear waste disposal for the United States.
Sure.
And I wrote a paper for my civics class about basically the dangers that it would bring to our area. And every kid in our class went home and told their parents that I said that we were all going to die. And I probably did. But after that, everybody wanted to debate me about it. And when I came out here to go to college, I was still, this anti-nuclear advocate, advocating against. And a friend took me aside and said, Jim, if you're going to be against something, you have to be for something. And so that's when I got into solar energy. The rest of the story was graduated, wrote my own degree in energy, started a newspaper, took an appointment from the governor in solar energy in 1987, and ran the solar department for the state of Arizona until 2005, and then became the director of the energy department under 2 governors, and then retired from there.
Sure. And then solar cookers.
Solar cookers was my introduction to them was through Citizens for Solar, a group out of Tucson who had a solar potluck, and I actually did a documentary of their 8th annual. I think they're probably on their 48th annual now, if I'm not mistaken. It's up there. And I bought solar cookers at the time and started cooking. My cookers are 38 years old, and I still use the same ones. I bought them in 1986, it was 86 or 87, 88, somewhere like that. I bought them, and I have the same 2 solar cookers.
This is the Burns Milwaukee?
Yes.
Yeah.
The sun oven.
Yes. Yeah. And amazing, just the point of, like I mentioned back there, I don't know anyone else that knows about that Bantam one. Even the 3rd owner, that sun oven, hadn't heard about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I got involved with Solar Cookers International. I was on their board of directors for a couple of years. That was through Barbara Kerr and Sherry Cole that got me hooked up with them. And so I was on their board of directors for a short period of time. But we did a project when I was running the solar office in Arizona one year, and we had educational materials that we put together on solar cooking, how they work, and then also how to build them. And then we sponsored workshops for 4th grade teachers, and we put 50, 60 4th grade teachers through these workshops. And then they went out with the materials and taught the lessons in their classroom, and their kids each built solar cookers. And that year we had 500 kits, the educational kits with the literature. Bob and Heather Larson out of Sedona, they're both gone now, but they had an outfit called Sunworks. And so we put together this, it included lesson plans and everything for 4th graders, and we gave out 500 of those in Arizona that year. So there were 500 teachers that were teaching the lesson plan on solar cooking, and that was, in the early 90s. It might have been 1995, 96, somewhere like that. And I keep thinking someday I'm going to run into some kid that's going to say, I know all about that. We learned about it in 4th grade, but I haven't run into that person yet.
Yeah, and right now I keep like I mentioned, I put out the Son of a Villager and a bunch of cookers at the state fair, and I couldn't count how many people said, oh, and Scouts, with the Pringles can hot dog cooker or the pizza box cooker.
Yes.
And I think some of them, they play it safe because the hot dog's already cooked, so they're not worried about poisoning their
Well, you talk about a Pringle can, and before that it was the Quaker Oat box.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that was the one that a lot of people use for a hot dog cooker.
Sure. They just line it with aluminum foil, and you got the parabolic trough. And brilliant. Wow. And so you still have those two cookers, cooking them more than when you can?
Yeah, it's not a religion. At one point in time it was like whenever I could, even,
Sure.
But now it seems like just being one person, if I use it, a couple times a week, that's, of course, I don't cook but a couple times a week anyway, so. Yeah.
Well, you're blessed here. I live in Minneapolis, as you know, and I call it the variety weather belt. And when you look at those maps they have of the whole world with insolation, with all the concentration of sunlight, and the 45th degree parallel, and all the snowstorms and everything, and we can't predict.
Right.
Here you can, you got a pretty good, that little prairie gas for one.
Yeah, the only time we run into trouble is if we're planning something the day before and all of a sudden you wake up and there's clouds, which doesn't happen very often, but it does happen.
Yeah.
But I've used it up in the mountains here in the wintertime, and with bright, intense sun, and it cooks just as well as down here. So.
I was surprised when we did a little side trip this morning to, I forget if it's Lodestar or Lodestone, but they're doing kind of almost replicating building for building the per coal center, and how the one cooker they couldn't get up above 300 degrees, and they felt it was because of the altitude. And I'm thinking, no, the altitude, you got less atmosphere to filter it out. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, maybe there's some leak, and it isn't sealed up right.
Yeah. Well, that's the only thing that has gone wrong with my cookers in 40 years is I've noticed when they were new, the temperature was 425, 450, and now it's 350, 75 degrees. And the only thing that I can figure out is the rubber seals are no longer as tight as what they once were. But even at that 350, I can cook anything I want.
Oh yeah. When I mentioned to this group of the Lodestar place, the Sun Stove, South Africa, just made from printing plates that were snipped in the right places, crimped and operated together. Two of them nested together with whatever you want, roll for insulation. 250, respectable, so it cooks all day, and you don't have to be fussing with the pointing all day, so it gets the job done.
Yeah.
Well, what would you say to people that want to promote it or adopt it these days?
Well, promoting it, and I spent probably 15 years doing promotion. In fact, I did that documentary in 1988, and it aired on the PBS stations, but also at that time there was something called cable access. What were the two guys? They had the
Click and Clack?
No, it was the movie with Wayne and Garth.
Sure,
Wayne's World, and they had a show on cable access, and so there were cable access channels in every town in Arizona, and there may still be. But I took my documentary to all these stations and gave it to them, and I think it was the only programming some of them had, because at the end of the film was my phone number. And I would come into the office and there'd be like 125 messages on my phone, and I would start answering them, and the messages all were about the solar cooking show that they'd seen. And I remember one of them saying, "This is the only show that has been on for 7 days. Could you please take it off?" So it just ran, because it was the only programming they had, other than a live, show or a basketball game that they'd go out and film. But if they just stuck my And so I went all over Arizona and gave those tapes and, and hand delivered them, because I figured if they showed up in the mail, they may not, ever get played. But if I come out and I show them, my interest in what they're doing, and here's something that I think could help them, so they joined in the fight for so long, that solar cooking show, just documentary. I think it was maybe 20 minutes long, but and it was filmed at the Tucson Solar Potluck in 1988.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I recognize some of the people there from interviewing them. Pat, he actually had Solar Toby's death ray.
Okay.
He's got this big stainless steel one that he makes that I bought from him for my collection. Dickens of a time fitting it into my Buick Escort, Buick Encore. Had to take it partly apart.
Yeah, and the Solar Potluck that I filmed in 1988, I want to say there must have been 60 or 70 solar ovens, and so everybody came out and everybody cooked something. Well, some of them cooked the same thing, but so many different varieties. And at the end of the day, everybody just brought their food at 4 or 5 o'clock and to a big table, and then everybody just went through and piled on the food. So
it's a wonderful event.
Yes.
I wish that could be replicated.
Well, and in fact, when you talk about promotion, I think that is, like it sold me on solar cooking in 1988, and I'm still doing it to this day. But when you talk about, learning about it, whether it's classroom or whatever, there's nothing better than getting all these people together, and they can tell you their, what, their personal stories with solar cooking and what they cook, and I remember some of them, like Joe Blankenship telling me, until the utility company can get a meter between you and the sun, they're going to tell you it doesn't work.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway,
it's the old journalism thing. Follow the money.
Yeah.
If they can't make money, they're going to rally against it.
So I spent probably 15 years, 20 years doing promotion of all sorts of solar, but solar cooking was kind of one of my, I took to it more than I did the other technologies because it was something I could do. I didn't have a solar water heater on my house, and I had an Adobe ranch style house here in Phoenix, so I didn't have the passive solar, and it wasn't until 2006 or 2005 that I got solar photovoltaics on my roof. But for those years between 88 and 2005, I was a solar cooker. The newspaper would come out every once in a while and do a story on me cooking with solar. So yeah, because like I know that you have talked with Ed Eaton, and he was in that documentary in '88 because he was one of the organizers of it. And Barbara Kerr and Sherry Cole, who invented the solar box cooker, which is now distributed. It's their organization, Solar Cookers International, have come up with a different model now. It's a panel cooker, but that is what they use in refugee camps and stuff around the world. And that was a great organization to be involved with for a few years on their board of directors. But
I've been on their external affairs committee for 2 or 3 years, and they haven't met in a while. But it's and most of the meetings are about what have we done to promote solar cooking and to direct people to SCI and so forth.
Right.
But they're really focusing on the third world and getting into where the deforestation is happening and the refugee camps where some might be cynical and say, well, they're a captive audience, but hey, you know how much it costs to get propane in there or to ship truckloads of wood, and that wood is deforestation. So let's get those cookers.
Well,
in there.
and what our program was at the time, and this goes back 30 some years ago, was that we did classes in refugee camps and taught folks how to use them, and then they earned their cooker by planting, I think it was 10 seedlings.
Oh, cool.
And taking care of the seedlings for 6 months, and then they got the panel cooker with a pot and oven bags and oven mitts, because that was one of the lessons, is to teach them that there's no fire, but that is still a hot pot. Yeah.
There's an organization, Solar Oven Partners. They're a project of the United Methodist Church, and they make a cooker a lot like the Solar Oven Society Sport. They can hold 3 pots. It's a lot wider. And when I interviewed them, and they're actually the first video I did in 2020 when I hit the road. I had a quick surgical strike into South Dakota where they had a shop. And Marge Evans DeCarpio, their executive director at the time, she said they had women's groups in the church that would make the oven mitts, and then before they packaged them up to get to the Raymond, South Dakota place where they put them all on pallets to ship to Sierra Leone and Dominican Republic, is they'd all put them on and then hold their hands together and pray. To just basically say, make sure these bless the people that receive them. So any little bit like that, and they knew that too, is making sure it meet all their needs.
Yeah.
And the great thing about that cooker is Pat McCardle, who is she worked for the State Department and promoted solar cooking in Afghanistan. She said one of the first things she learned was everyone just gives a cooker to a family, but the family might have 2 or 3 things they have to cook side by side. And so she's really hard-nosed, saying, hey, if you're going to distribute cookers, make sure you get 2 at least, with a pot each, so that they can cook with them.
Yeah.
That's it's going to be a complicated matter to try to figure out, well, where can we get them? Are they going to be agreeable to them? Are there cultural things you got to get over? But the oven mitts, that's an absolutely top point.
One of the things that Barbara Kerr was loved to say was that she believed that this had been offered to us several times, many times over the years. I mean, you even go back to the 1700s, and there were people cooking with solar on. And she says that her dream and goal was to make it part of the human consciousness, that it was something that everybody used. And Ed Eaton, speaking of Ed, Ed used to say people would come up to him and say, well, what is the best cooker? There's the slant face, there's the box, there's the parabolic, there's this, and Ed would say, yours is the best. And they'd say, mine, why? And he says, because you use it. Because if you don't use it, it's no good. If you use it, it's the best one.
It's not even a paperweight. I mean, it's useful for nothing else. But,
Same with the gallon of gas. It's worth nothing in a can. Just sits there. It's a paperweight.
Pour it into the
but you got to use it somewhat. So,
wow. Great.
Okay.
Thanks,
All right.
Okay.
Yep.